Good evening. Welcome to our candidates and welcome to the audience tonight. I'm Tanya Ishikawa and I'll be your moderator this evening for the forum. This is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of the Uncompahgre Valley, and it's in partnership with the City of Montrose. The League of Women Voters is a trusted grassroots organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. We do not endorse or oppose candidates or political parties. The League participates in issue advocacy and voter education. The advocacy arm of the League may take positions on issues such as ballot measures. This forum is presented by the education arm of the League, and we don't take positions or advocate for them. I'd like to remind everyone that the candidates have all agreed to participate under guidelines set for this forum, and the guidelines are also posted outside of the room. As a matter of courtesy, please turn off your electronic devices. Please be aware that campaign literature or other forms of campaigning, such as buttons and t-shirts or signs, are not permitted inside the forum room in line with the League's nonpartisan tenet. We are broadcasting and videotaping tonight's forum, and the session will be available on the City of Montrose YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/user/MontroseCityGov. It's also on cable channel 191 for charter subscribers, and on channel 970 for Elevate subscribers. You'll be able to find links for the recording on our website, and on those three places for the city, it will be broadcasting every night up until the election, so you'll be able to see it again. The forum tonight will be for Colorado State Senate District 5. There are two candidates for this position. They are candidate Cole Buerger and State Representative Marc Catlin. So now I'll start with the ground rules. Each candidate has 3 minutes for opening remarks. The speaker order is as the candidate's name appears on the ballot, and I believe Cole Buerger is first. The timekeepers will signal candidates with colored signs marked 30 seconds and stop. Please observe those and stop, otherwise I'll have to start flagging you down. The first 3 questions are submitted by the League, and I'll be asking those questions first. The rest of the questions will be supplied by the audience as time allows. As audience members arrived tonight, our volunteers provided cards for submitting written questions. The questions will be screened for duplication or applicability and must be addressed by both candidates. The order of answering the questions will alternate, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. There will be no separate rebuttals, so no time allotted for that. Following the questions, each candidate shall have 3 minutes for closing statements in reverse order from the opening statements, so beginning with Representative Catlin. Our timers, both of them this evening, we have Kathy Lauer and Alice Murphy was up front. My script is wrong, and we have Peggy Nerlin, and all of the volunteers from the League of Women Voters are the ones who are seated at the table, timing, and myself as well. So let's begin with the first candidate. Mr. Buerger, if you could please make your opening statement, and the 3 minutes will begin now.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for hosting this forum. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, to the timers, to everybody who's involved. We really appreciate everybody taking the time out of a beautiful fall afternoon. I ran over here from the Colorado Outdoors block party, so only had one beverage over there. My name's Cole Buerger. I'm a 5th-generation Coloradan. I grew up on my family's ranch just south of Silt, Colorado, where we raise quarter horses and Simmental cattle. I'm a member of the Colorado River Valley Economic Development Partnership Board in Garfield County, the Garfield County Planning and Zoning Board. I serve on the board of the Middle Colorado Watershed Council. I'm a small business owner, and I'm really thrilled to be a candidate for this district. I am running for office because I think we need fresh voices and new perspectives in the state capitol. We need effective leadership for our district and for rural Colorado's communities because we face a lot of challenges. Growing up here, I know how lucky we are to live in the most beautiful part of Colorado, but I also know firsthand the challenges that we face, whether that's being water, making sure that our ranchers and ag producers and our communities have water, and that's meeting their needs, whether it's keeping the family ranch or a household over your head, a small business owner knowing the red tape that we face, the death by 1,000 cuts sometimes by overburdensome regulation, protecting our public lands and making sure that we're protecting our natural heritage and being good stewards. So tonight I look forward to answering your questions, making sure that we are advancing and talking about the ideas that I have to address all of those issues. And I'm really pleased to be here, and I'll conclude a little bit earlier than necessary.
Thank you. Representative Catlin?
Well, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Try again. Let me just make sure.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Didn't sound like it, so I was
Yeah,
afraid.
yeah, maybe the microphone a little bit closer to your
All right,
mouth. I think
okay,
these are
try
the kind
that.
you have to eat.
Well, thank you for having me tonight, and thank you folks for being here. I'm proud of you. You take the time out of your day to come and find out about candidates, about issues, and about the state that you live in. That shows you're engaged, and I'm proud of you for being engaged because we need more people that will be. I'm from Montrose. I was born and raised here, spent all of my life on the Western Slope. I've had a lot of jobs, but they've all been on the Western Slope. You know, I started out in the real estate business when I was 19 and then went to banking. I was a banker, an ag banker for a number of years here in Montrose in the early 80s through some of the most toughest times that agriculture's ever had. And I ended up being the manager of the Uncompahgre Valley Water Users, which is the largest irrigation district on the Western Slope. 80,000 acres of land and 3,200 customers or something like that at the time I left, with 575 miles of canals and laterals, 216 miles of drain ditch, the Gunnison Tunnel, and 2 reservoirs. Taylor Park Reservoir, we operate Taylor Park Reservoir. And we're also members down here at Ridgeway. Water has always been the equity in my life. I've spent my life doing that. I'm a farmer out here west of Montrose. I think most of you that are from here know where those farms are at. So agriculture, water, and people have been the centerpiece of my campaign, have been the centerpiece of my services to this community. I've represented the 58th district for 4 terms. We're just now finishing that term up. It'll be over 1st of January when we swear in a new person. So I bring that experience with me, the experience in the House of Representatives, along with the experience here on the Western Slope. I've been involved with the Chambers of Commerce, with all of the different organizations. I currently sit on the Colorado River District. I'm the Vice President of the Board of Directors. I represent Montrose County. I've been told I've got very little time, so anyway, I'll close it for that, and I'm currently involved in it all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for introducing yourselves. And now the first question is about housing. And I believe I'll start with Mr. Catlin first on this one and then go back to Mr. Buerger. And the question is, as it is in most of Colorado and the nation, the lack of affordable housing is a serious issue in our district, impacting cities and rural areas alike. How do you see this issue affecting the economy of Western Colorado, and how would you work in the Senate to address it?
Well, to answer the first part of that question in regards to how is it affecting the economy, right now we've got runaway prices because we've been found. A lot of people are wanting to move to the Western Slope of Colorado, and they're buying up a lot of the inventory that's there. Therefore, the people that we have here are struggling to keep up with the prices. One of the things that I think every community should do is take the time, everybody come to the table, to decide what it is they want. How many units do you think we need for the hospital, for the schools, for those type of things? Everybody sits down, everybody says this is what we could do. Once we figure that out, how much we have, then we ask the builders in the community, what can you do with that? If it's not enough, then we should go to the state and talk about a revolving loan fund that would allow people to borrow the dollars to do that and then pay it back and then keep loaning those dollars out and about. The other thing that I would like to see is, when I was in the real estate business, we built houses that were not massive. We built 1,200 square foot homes with 2 and 3 bedrooms that allowed people to get in and start on the property equity ladder. I mean, without that, we're building 3,000 to 5,000 square foot homes, and you have to be wealthy in order to buy one. So in order for people to get in, we need to start building some smaller houses in every subdivision. We need to be looking at condominiums. We need to help people get into the property ownership ladder.
Thank you. And Mr. Buerger?
Could you repeat that question?
Sure. Let's see. I'll shorten it a little bit. Basically talking about affordable housing is a serious issue everywhere. And how do you see this issue affecting the economy of Western Colorado? And how would you work in the Senate to address that?
Well, I think the cost of housing is very, very tied to our economy. When we can't have people in our workforce, when they're having to commute an hour, 90 minutes a day, or one way in order to get to jobs, it really makes it really hard to keep employees and keep our economy running. So it's absolutely something that we have to address. One of the things that I've talked about along this campaign is getting out of the way of builders. In Colorado, we have the construction defect regulations on the books that create this incentive system that builders are more likely to build a 5,000 square foot, $5 million house in Aspen than workforce housing for people in Silton, Rifle, and Montrose. And so getting the state out of the way, making sure that we are removing barriers for builders and that we are creating a policy environment where communities can work with public-private partnerships in order to build more housing stock. The other thing I would say is that affordability in terms of housing is not the only, it's one piece of a much broader affordability crisis that we're facing here in Colorado, whether that's healthcare, childcare. Those are things that when you start adding them up, it makes it really, really hard to have strong economies in all of our rural communities. And so I think there's a lot of things that we can do on the housing front to start.
Thank you. The next question, energy. What is your approach in considering bills related to alternative energy sources and any reduction of the reliance on coal, gas, and oil? Mr. Buerger first, 2 minutes, please.
On the energy front, we know in Western Colorado that we are certainly energy producing. In Garfield County, it accounts for about 56% of our tax base is oil and gas production. So it's a key part of our financial stability. We just have to make sure that we're doing it responsibly. I think that means capping, orphan wells. It means enforcing the rules that are on the books. In terms of the broader energy sector, it's going to have to be all of the above, and I don't think that we should be picking winners and losers when we're doing that. So for the foreseeable future, right, we're going to see market incentives, whether that's on the front, like when you look at coal, the market is doing a lot of that transition anyway, and so I don't think that we should be further punishing that. And on the flip side of that coin, we have a just transition office in the state of Colorado to help communities who are seeing changes in their economic base. That office needs to do better work. I think that there are some problems there in terms of too many strings attached and people in Denver deciding the future for communities rather than communities deciding their own future.
Thank you. Mr. Catlin?
Well, thank you. I'm a believer in all forms. But in our 5th district, we have the ability to produce an enormous amount of energy. We need to be pursuing that. The jobs that come along with those kind of with that kind of development are good for our communities. One of the things that's happening with just transition, we're trading dollars of income for dimes of training. We need to get with it so that we can produce the energy this country needs. I'm a member, I've supported bills of all of the above. We're also now looking at package nuclear plants. These kind of things make some real sense to me. The other thing that we've been blessed with is we've been blessed with thermal energy, the heat beneath our feet. I think we should be looking at that. There are some places up on Horsefly, and in the north part of the district, that heat underneath our feet may be a big part of the answer. Mesa College, Mesa University, I'm sorry, they are in the process of developing, being able to heat their whole facility with thermal energy. We need to be producing that. We need to be after it. The idea that we would stop producing some sort of energy in favor of something else doesn't really work for me. I think the marketplace is going to tell us exactly where we're going to go. And there is demand for our energy. So we need to meet that demand, along with our country needs to be producing more and more energy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question. According to Colorado's Children's Campaign, suicide is the leading cause of death for youth in Colorado. The Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment found that the most common precursors to youth suicide were current diagnosed mental health problems, current depressed mood, and family relationship problems. How would you support the increased availability and affordability of mental health resources in this district? Mr. Catlin.
Well, thank you. That's been one of the things that we've focused on during my career is youth suicide. I can't think of anything sadder than that. I have tried numerous times to get more beds for mental health in Montrose and in the 58th district. In fact, we've got a new facility here for emergencies that would not have happened if we hadn't pushed for that. The other thing is what I've tried to do is to run some bills that would help with suicide prevention. We passed a bill this year in regards to sodium nitrite, a product that I knew very little about. But what it is a product that's been sold on the internet that will allow children, young people, to accomplish suicide with no repercussions. So we passed a bill this year that will regulate the purchase of that product. You can't buy 100% pure unless you're a commercial operator. One individual on the internet had 1,200 sales of the packet that would allow you to complete suicide. Nothing happened. We have a world war right now, about 1,300 people being killed in the Middle East. There's a war over that. So we're doing nothing about trying to stop those kind of individuals. I have also run a bill and passed it to put on the back of every ID for university kids, people that are in college, on the back side is the help number that if you're worried about yourself or you're worried about one of your friends, you can call that phone number and start to get some help. I think that's the kind of things that we'll continue to do.
Thank you. And now, Mr. Buerger.
Yeah, mental health we're at crisis level here in rural Colorado. We've seen it in every corner of SD5, every corner of rural Colorado. I think one of the things that we have to be leaning into is making it easier to access mental health resources. I think oftentimes we have a bunch of different organizations who are trying to do very similar things, and people don't necessarily know what the right door is for them. And so if we have a navigator program, they've done really interesting things in the Vail Valley, with the Vail Valley Partnership, for having a single number that can help you navigate to the right organization that can address your problem. We should be working with the state and at the state level with other organizations to do that, to decomplicate it, because I think when you have a kiddo who grows up on a farm in Silt or a ranch in Silt, and there's stigma around mental health already, and then when they get the bravery up to cross that threshold, and then they don't get to the right place, I don't know how many people are going back, right? If they don't get to the right place the first time. So that's a big part of it. I think I would have done differently than my opponent and voted for more mental resources in schools. He voted against a bill that would have allowed for that. I would have voted for that bill. And we can do a lot of things that are not dollars and cents as well. When you look at, I talked to somebody here in this community that is a mental health provider, and they told me that because of the rules and reporting requirements when you do enter their practice, we added a couple of more every year, and so out of every hour, about 11 minutes are spent doing that reporting for the state, and I think that's 11 minutes that we're not treating people.
Thank you. The next questions are now from the audience. The first question from the audience that I'll have Mr. Buerger answer first is, how can we support the H-2A workers who support our agriculture and tourist industry when the atmosphere is so negative?
Yeah, I think that this is a really, really important thing for our entire economy. Not only H-2A, I think there's a lot of J-1 visas for resort communities that we've got to advance as well. Partnering with our federal delegation to push that through at the federal level. I think, the two of us up here in terms of getting to the state legislature, whoever wins is faced with the fact that the federal government has abdicated their responsibility on this issue. We have a broken immigration system, and it simply can't go on like this. But at the state level, we can do everything we can to work with our federal partners and our federal delegation and streamline processes for immigrants and other workers who can fill those jobs.
Thank you. And now, Mr. Catlin.
Thank you. Thank you. H-2A is working here in Montrose. One of the things we farmers do is we pay to house and to take care of the workers when they get here. We have people that are here in our fields that have been here 20 and 30 times. They want to come back. What we're trying to do is to encourage that. Take good care of people, give them the opportunities that they need, and we're paying them well. We have passed a number of labor laws that in the state have not really helped labor. They've helped, honestly, factory farms or corporate farms, because they're the people that can afford to hire more and more people instead of paying and letting these people work more hours. So we've cut back the hours, and therefore those folks are not making the money that they need to make. I think that the H-2A should be strengthened. I think that more people should be allowed to come, because labor is getting harder and harder to find, regardless if it's in the tourism industry or the agricultural industry. We need to do the things that we can to bring these people here so that they can help us with harvest and with taking care of our visitors that come to see us. Overall, labor is one of the toughest things that everybody's having a problem with. You cannot find the people to hire. So if these folks are wanting to come, we should get them in here and help us. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, what is your plan for getting funding to maintain our roads? Please begin, Mr. Catlin.
Would you repeat that?
Yeah.
I didn't hear it.
What is your plan for getting funding to maintain our roads?
Our roads? Mm-hmm. Well, you've hit right on a place that I'm concerned about. The state of Colorado has decided that rather than us being a highway-driven, we're going to be multimodal. Multimodal takes money away from the Western Slope. You start putting money into buses, electric trains, sidewalks, and those kind of things. We don't have that. We're needing some, I will agree. But we need to take a good look at our roads. I-70, now that I'm looking at the 5th District, I-70 is in trouble. You and I know what happened with the bridge over at Blue Mesa. That was an emergency. And it was an emergency to the state, and they had to be convinced to believe that it was an emergency. The repairs that are going on have taken longer than what probably anybody wanted, but in my conversations with CDOT, that's what had to be done in order to strengthen that bridge. We need more identified ability to us nominate roads that need work, and CDOT listen. CDOT is being run from Denver, and with their attitudes towards Denver, they want more people out of their cars. In testimony to me at committee, in the Transportation Committee, CDOT said, we want to get you out of your cars. Here in Montrose, I have folks that drive 60 miles to a specialist. There's not a train, there's not a bus. We need to have roads that work. And that's one of the things that I will continue to work on.
Thank you. And Mr. Buerger?
I would have to agree here. What is happening is that it is a top-down approach with myopic vision for transportation in our country that's led by Denver, and we can't continue to let that happen. We have not as many people on this side of the mountain, but we have a lot of miles of road, and we have to make sure that the funding calculus that's coming out of the capital is reflective of those miles. You know, I would like to see the numbers of what we're spending on bike paths at CDOT rather than, you know, and some of this other multimodal stuff that ends up taking away dollars from us. I also think that this is an opportunity where we can work through the calculus of what the people of Colorado want and what dollars are available from the state. Do we need to ask the voters for more dollars? That's a question that I think we should consider. So, you know, it's certainly when a bridge goes down in Denver and it's a 20-minute delay, but when it goes down here and it's 5 hours, that's a big problem, and we have to make sure that we're looking forward to being proactive about how we're identifying pinch points like that and what it does to our economies, to healthcare, to childcare, those kinds of things, and be ahead of the game as well.
Thank you. The next question, what have you done or will you do to improve school safety in our communities? And we'll begin with Mr. Buerger.
You know, school safety to me is really a matter of making sure that we have excellent leadership at the local level, that we are electing people on the school boards, to the school boards who are focused on the facilities, making sure that they are secure, that we are addressing mental health issues, we're identifying them early and addressing those mental health issues. I don't have a specific one policy that's going to solve this problem, but I do think that if we are leaning in, making sure that we have good staff, that we're funding our teachers, that we're hiring and retaining good teachers who can identify those problems, and that we're providing funds for the capital costs needed to secure our schools, we'll be in pretty good shape.
Thank you. And Mr. Catlin?
Thank you. Well, one of the things I think we need to do is harden our schools more, which means less entry points. Our school district is good about that. The school districts on the Western Slope are good about it because we're aware. I think the other thing that we can do, and I passed a bill that put a radio in every teacher's pocket, that when something happened, they would be able to communicate directly with the police force that is responding, so that where the problem was, they would know. They wouldn't have to go and look for the problem. They'd be able to communicate directly. That was a bill that passed rather easily. Well, I think it was a $5 million piece of legislation that we put in place here in Montrose in a number of the schools in the state of Colorado. I think the other thing we need to be able to do is to identify individuals that are having a problem. They tell me that nobody really ever snaps, that they are showing signs that it's coming. We need to be more aware of that. More dollars, more programs, more training would be something that I would be in favor of. And we've been doing that. We're in the process of taking a good hard look at our schools. I think the school board members in Montrose and every town in this district, kids' safety is the first thing on their mind. And I'd like to help them with that.
Thank you. The next question, what would you say to supporters of your candidacy who are at public holiday events if they respond with aggression and even violence to people with different political beliefs? And start with Mr. Catlin, please.
Say that one again.
It's a long one. So at public holiday events, if there are supporters of your candidacy there, as well as other people with other different political beliefs, and your supporters respond to the others with violence and aggression, what would you say to your supporters?
I would tell them that's nowhere in this state is that acceptable. Violence is not something anybody should be talking about or even thinking about. And in a public place, I can't think of anything that I would condone at all with that. They should be arrested, put in jail, charged, and incarcerated as far as I'm concerned. Part of our problem is people want to get violent, or they threaten violence. They look like they're going to get after you. That's just, there's no room for that in our communities, anywhere, anywhere, not just the 5th District, but anywhere in the state of Colorado.
Thank you. And Mr. Buerger?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, this is one of those things. What I would say to them is it's absolutely wrong. It undermines not only our communities, but it undermines our democratic institutions. This country was founded on the ability to share your opinion, to have free speech, but also we do that through rule of law, right? It is not, there's no place for violence. And I think that's one of the problems of where we're at, is that we are constantly demonizing the other side. And, you know, for the most part, we are looking at like most people in our communities are good, decent, hardworking people, and we have fringe elements that are making this conversation worse. And so I do not, strongly condemn any violence, and I believe that we should, work together as communities to make that very clear to everyone on the political spectrum.
Thank you. The next question. How will you work across the aisle in the General Assembly to get good bills passed to help our district? Mr. Buerger?
Yeah, I think this is a huge one. When it comes to a lot of the issues that face SD5 and rural Colorado, they're not partisan issues, right? We are all on the same team, rowing in the same direction to make sure that we're protecting our water, that we're protecting our public lands, that we're supporting agriculture, that we're getting the infrastructure dollars that we need. I do think that a lot of people in the legislature don't have a true understanding of our communities. They don't know and understand the challenges we face. And so I've said before, I think we need some field trips. I would like to create or reinstate from our former senator from SD5, Marc Catlin. He had a legislator exchange program with Front Range legislators. He brought people over to Deltorado Days and others and made sure that they could see and experience and talk to the constituents that live here so that they have a better understanding of how their legislation can negatively or positively impact us. So more time spent getting people to our side of the mountain so they can see it, and doing the same as well for us on our side. I don't know and understand the challenges of urban schools. So making sure that we just have a shared experiences and better understanding of where everybody sits on the spectrum would be top of mind for me.
Thank you. And Mr. Catlin?
Well, I think one of the things is relationships, and I have those relationships. I've been noticed as the most bipartisan legislator in the Capitol building a couple of different times. What it is that when we on the Western Slope write a bill, we should write that bill so that it's about our communities. And when we take that to the other party, we say, look, this is a good bill for my district. Let them take a look at it and read it. This happens during my whole campaign, my whole career. Take a look at this bill. It's a good one. I think you'll like it too. And usually, before the next morning, when we gavel in, they call me and say, would you put my name on it? I'd like to be a co-sponsor with you. Because one of the things we're finding is that bills that come from the rural communities, once they go up to Denver, they work statewide. It's the bills that come down from Denver that we end up having to whittle our square peg to fit their round hole. And that's where some of the rub comes. People are looking to cooperate if you approach them in the right way. We've been successful with that. 80% of the bills that I've run have passed. Every one of my bills, except for 2, were co-sponsored by the Democrats in the House of Representatives. So it's possible. It doesn't ever get much press because the fringes are always fighting up above us, making the news. But those of us that are looking to cooperate get a lot of things done.
Thank you. Next question. What is your experience in managing water resources in Colorado?
My first?
Your experiences in managing water resources in Colorado.
Well, thank you. I was raised on a farm out here west of Montrose. The first instructions that were ever given to me was don't let any get off the hill. which meant we didn't want to run water away from our place. So my brother and I figured out, well, we'll put a canvas dam at the end of that ditch, and when we get done changing water, we'll go down and put some siphon tubes onto that field. That works. And that's the same theory here. I ran the Uncompahgre Valley Water Users. I was in management there for 17 years. You know, we had 1,800 CFS coming in, which should have only irrigated about 30,000 acres of land. But we irrigate nearly 80,000 acres of land with that same water because of use, reuse, use, and reuse. That's an answer for the state of Colorado. Using water and reusing water is part of the solution, because my water, my tailwater, makes your Colorado water right whole. If we keep those things in mind, we'll be able to manage. We just simply can't be subjected to the pressures downstream that say that our irrigation and our agriculture is not as valuable as theirs. Our ag in Colorado is incredibly valuable. Then also, the water that's transferred over the state, over the mountain. Trans-mountain diversions never take a cut. They take 100% every year. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Buerger?
Well, I've said it before at many different forums. My very first memory was irrigating with my mom on our family ranch on a very rickety three-wheeler in the alfalfa fields. I know firsthand what it's like to have your family's entire livelihood depend on water. Now, I have not been a water management person, a leader in that. I know, but I sit on the Middle Colorado Watershed Council Board, and I talk to communities and stakeholders every single place I go about the importance of water. I know that we have to keep it in its home basins. I know that we have to be better at watershed health in the state of Colorado. We need to allocate more dollars towards conservation projects for our ag producers and our farmers and ranchers, making sure that we squeeze every last drop out and that we're not letting it go past the Utah border if we don't have to, right? And so this is one of those issues where everybody on the West Slope agrees. We need to fight for every drop, make sure that we are expanding its usage where we can, and that we're not letting it leave its home basins until we get what we need out of it and our rights. So I look forward to working with people on both sides of the aisle, with Becky Mitchell and her team and others, to make sure that Colorado's water and the West Slope's water is protected in Denver.
Thank you. This question I'm going to insert between the audience questions. This was one by a couple of us in the league. So public lands are mainly controlled by the federal government, but as they are a great amount of our district, what can you do at the state level to impact the use as well as the management of public lands? What would you see as the greatest issue to be addressed with our public lands?
Well, I think we have to make sure as state legislators that we're working with our federal delegation and communicating that all of our public lands have to remain multi-use. I think we are in danger in some respects of losing some of those usage on our public lands, and that is bad for our economy and it's bad for our state in general. So ensuring that we are communicating with our federal delegation so they understand that our public lands in SD5 and across the Western Slope remain multi-use, that we're protecting our grazing permits and we're protecting other usages is really important to me. We can walk and chew gum when it comes to our public lands, and I think that we should, I would be a strong advocate for anybody in our federal delegation to make sure that we can continue to do that.
Thank you. And now Mr. Catlin.
Thank you. I thank you. Well, one of the things I think that if your senator is involved, you need to be able to talk to him about what's happening on some of our public lands. Shutting down roads, shutting down access, those kind of things should be questioned immediately, whether it be the BLM, Forest Service, some of their transportation plans need to be relooked at, because people in D.C. are trying to make up our minds as to what we need for multi-use on the lands that surround us. 75% of the land in this district is federal land. You know, the county of of Hinsdale is 97% public owned. It's only 3% that's private property. What are they doing? I mean, you know, they're being injured by some of the decisions that are being made. With the U.S. Forest Service coming out today and saying that they're not going to hire the 2,000 temporary employees to help with trails and walking and all of those things, that can't stand. We should not be able to, we shouldn't have to deal with that. We've got organizations that are trail maintainers. They rely on those people that are hired on a seasonal basis. Our public lands will suffer if all of the decisions are made in D.C. Those decisions can and should be made right here in meetings like this. We shouldn't have to beg them to use our public lands.
Thank you. Another question from the League about climate change. We have seen this year some devastating natural events occur, taking enormous tolls on lives and property, and straining the ability of the government to respond. Locally, we know of the impact of extreme temperatures of climate change impacting costs of food production for farmers and ranchers, and food prices for consumers. What strategies do you see as most effective to address these problems at the state level? Mr. Catlin, first on this.
At a state level, we are in the process, we have passed a number of different bills that are about climate change and changing regulations. We really haven't had much time for them to show whether or not they'll work, but the state of Colorado moves forward in trying to address climate change. I'm aware that the weather's changing. You know, it's impacting my farm, it's impacting everything on the western slope. I think as a community, we should be taking a look at it. Nobody should be telling us this is what you will do or this is what you won't do. Those kind of decisions need to be bought into by the local community, by the state. We can't just be the only state in the union that's trying to change climate change. We have some neighbors that are not involved with that. The state of Colorado cannot be the only one that's doing it. I'm appreciative of the state taking a leadership role, but we need to talk to these other states if we're going to make any differences.
Thank you. And now, Mr. Buerger.
You know, I think this goes back, it impacts a lot of the issues that we see in Western Colorado. You know, again, whether you're a resort or a rancher, you depend upon snowpack, and we've seen drought, historic drought in the Colorado River Basin and others, and so we have to move on this issue. I think that, you know, when we do it, the state tends to pick a date on the calendar and work backwards, say we're going to get there. I think that we have to be realistic in what we can do to address climate change and move the needle, right? On the emissions front, we tend to do great things in the United States when we unleash innovation, right? One of my favorite, I call him my favorite mad scientist, is Chris Cascade. He runs Delta Brick and Tile here in Montrose. His factory is here. You know, he just bought a abandoned coal mine and is capturing that methane and is going to use that methane, hopefully, to fire the bricks and tiles that he makes in his kilns. That is good for our diversifying our economy. It's also good for the emissions, right? That methane is very potent, and when you fire it, it's, I think, 80 times less potent when it's carbon dioxide. So moving the needle by embracing innovation is one way that we need to do it in Colorado. The other thing is we have to be realistic about how we can mitigate. You know, to Representative Catlin's point, Colorado can't solve this problem alone. And so we are going to have to lean in and look ahead at what change is going to happen. And as we do that, make sure that we're taking that into account for our plans for the future and being prepared for those differences, whether that's on wildfire or anything else.
Thank you. Next question. Would you or how would you support women's bodily autonomy and the full scope of women's access to reproductive health care, including abortion? Mr. Buerger.
this is a baseline freedom issue. We should not be telling people what to do with their body. And I'm very supportive of the constitutional amendment that is on the ballot this coming November 5th to make sure that we're enshrining reproductive freedoms and healthcare decisions in the Constitution so that we don't have to have the potential for future legislators to introduce bills that would restrict that. I also think that it's important for us to look at ways the state can prevent reproductive health deserts in Colorado. We've seen attempts in a couple of different places where they've tried to get around it by changing zoning code or things like that. And I would like to see more access rather than less for women when it comes to reproductive health.
Thank you. Mr. Catlin, your answer?
Yes, ma'am. I support life, but I do want to make sure that the exceptions, the mother's health, rape, incest, is never on the table. Those things should not be discussed. They should just be given. That's a given in this world. I'm not really in favor of state-financed abortions. I am also not in favor of a real late term. Some of these things that are going on, they bother me. But currently, it's in the state law. What we have in Colorado is one of the most liberal abortion laws in the state, or in the United States. That's part of the law. There is a question on your ballot that will allow you to vote your conscience. And I think that's what we should be doing in all the states, is let's vote on it.
Sorry, there I'm back. Now this is the last question before we go to closing statements. The last question from the audience is, and this is slightly different than the one before. Before it was how you would work across the aisle. This one is, how do you plan to get the legislature to work on Western Slope issues instead of Front Range problems? And I know you've begun talking about that, but if you could go more in depth, and we'll start with Mr. Catlin.
Well, we're a minority within a minority. There are only 7 rural senators in the Senate. So one of the ways that we do that is those of us on the Western Slope, regardless of party, we band together because we're already a minority. So what we do is we run bills that support each other. I run a bill with a Democrat sponsor, and when that happens, then their caucus looks at it as this is a good bill. We've done some serious things for the Western Slope of Colorado. Purchasing the Shoshone water right is one of them. That passed nearly 97%. Those are the kind of things that Western Slope legislators learn to do as they're there. I know what we're going to be able to do. The people that are sitting there now, I've ran numerous bills with. We do a lot of good for the Western Slope. Granted that we are outnumbered by those urbanites. And, I can tell you, if you get used to wearing a necktie and suit pants for 14 or 15 hours a day, you probably ought to come home because you're about to become an urbanite. So I think that's what we'll do.
Thanks. And now, Mr. Buerger.
I think being able to explain our issues and, again, bring people over, have them see the issues firsthand, making sure that they understand what's going on in our communities and our needs and why they're different from those in the urban Front Range, but also being able to walk them through it and walk them through the consequences of some of these bills. I have a degree in public policy analysis, and one of my piece of expertise is understanding the second and third tier consequences of bad policies. And so I think that enables me to go and to look at what the legislation will do and then explain this to my colleagues down there, not knowing that when one senator this past round tried to pass an electric vehicle mandate and didn't have an exemption for tractors. I mean, first of all, we know that that's not good for the Western Slope, a mandate on electric vehicles, but also that it didn't have exemptions even for ag equipment. And so catching those things, explaining those consequences, and making sure that they understand them from our perspective will be the most important job of mine in the state legislature.
Thank you. And now it's time for the closing statements. And even though we just had you answer with Mr. Catlin first, we'll do that again since the opening statements began with Mr. Buerger. In your closing statement, you have 3 minutes to tell us your priorities and any other things that you haven't told us yet tonight.
Well, there's a lot of things I haven't had a chance to say yet. Well, in closing, I think the first thing that I would like you to understand is that it takes people like you to be involved. It doesn't matter who your senator is. It really matters if he's listening and if he's accessible to you. One of the things that we've been able to do in my career is that we've been available. We've been there to talk to people. We've done things that have made a difference in this community and in all the other communities that we represented. This is not about just having the $5 name tag that says you're a senator. This is about someone who will sit down, take the time to find out what your issues are. Now, we've got good folks on this side of the mountain, believe me. They will let me know what they're thinking and what they think that we need. We cannot just listen to party. This is something that transcends party. This is about area. This is about the western slope of Colorado and for the state of Colorado's future. I have the experience. I can do this. I have been doing this. So moving into the Senate would be one of those logical steps that people make. We've gone from the House of Representatives. We've served a full term. Now we can go to the Senate and have influence on a broader spectrum of things than what a House of Representatives member does. Usually, the Senate takes a little longer to deliberate. They write bills that will try to make a bigger difference. You know, and I think that my experience will be a real asset. The relationships that I currently have in the House and in the Senate will help this area. There are a lot of different issues, everything from raising sweet corn to running a resort, a world-class resort in this district. But I have helped do that. We've had resorts in my community here in the 58th. Having a couple more up there will be at least an opportunity to help with them. They have some issues that are very special. But all of us on the Western Slope need the experience of someone to go up there and be able to make the pitch for us. And I think that I'm the right guy for that. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Mr. Buerger.
Well, again, I appreciate everyone who has been here tonight listening to us talk about the issues that are critical to our district and our rural communities. Since August of last year, I have traveled to every single corner of this district. We've visited most communities multiple times, and we've spent it all showing up and shutting up and just listening. What are the critical needs of people in our district, from housing to healthcare to childcare, protecting our water, our public lands? We've heard the perspectives from all of the diverse aspects of our communities. That is what we need to have happen and to take those experiences and those voices to Denver. I am dedicated to doing that. For me, as someone who is a small business owner who grew up here, I know that when you have Aspen and Olathe in a Senate district, you have to be able to represent diverse interests, and I look forward to being able to do that. When we look at the challenges that are facing this district, we need somebody who can go and play offense, right? This district needs somebody who can sit on committees like those I would like to sit on, whether it's energy and transport, business, labor and technology, finance, that can bend and shape the policy to make it better for all of the people in SD5. I am so thrilled and excited about the possibility of what we can do together with our partners in other districts in rural communities, whether that's Senator Roberts, who's been supportive of this campaign, or others like the mayor, multiple mayors from around the district who've endorsed me in Gunnison and Crested Butte, former mayors in Aspen and Montrose. multiple city council members, local community leaders who I've met with trust me to get things done for our community. And I look forward to doing that in Denver if you'll honor me with your vote. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. And before we give them a round of applause, because I think I did this once before and everybody clapped and left the room, I have some information about the election and some thanks. So, yeah, I'm going to thank them now. Don't applause until we get to the end so that we can continue the evening. But on behalf of the League of Women Voters of the Uncompahgre Valley and our members in Delta, Montrose, and Uray counties, I want to thank the candidates for running for this office and for your participation this evening. As we are hosted by the City of Montrose, we thank those staff who generously made the use of this facility possible. We also want to thank the audience for coming to meet the candidates and proposing thoughtful questions. Please visit the League's website at lwv-uv.org for links to recordings of this forum, for information about upcoming forums and ballot issue presentations. Complete information on elections nationwide is also available on the League's vote411.org website. I wanted to tell you about two specific pieces of information that are on the internet as well. The State League has prepared a video on the 14 ballot issues to assist voters. It explains what happens if each individual issue passes and if it fails, why it is on the ballot, the fiscal impact, and lists additional resources. The video link is on our local website, which again is lwv-uv.org. And then another resource on the internet is the 2024 candidate interviews for Congressional District 3. So you can see those interviews as well as, with Adam Frisch, James Wiley, Jeff Hurd, and Adam Withrow. And members of the League of Women Voters are volunteers who do the hands-on work to empower voters and defend democracy. While we never endorse a candidate, we are directly involved in shaping important issues to keep our community strong. If you would like to be involved with the men and the women helping to make democracy work, it's easy to join the League. We encourage you to visit our website and visit us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter as well. The deadline to register to receive mailed ballots is October 28th, this coming Monday, so that you can vote by the general election of November 5th. If you have moved or changed your name, wish to change your party affiliation, or register online, go to the Secretary of State's website or govotecolorado.org. Or that is actually govotecolorado.org, sorry, that is the site. Remember to vote by mail or in person with identification, up to and including Election Day. The best citizens also encourage their families, friends, and neighbors to vote. So thank you again and have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.